Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to come and support my friend.
I keep forgetting that's how, I know Catherine through you. I keep forgetting that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know her through a neighbor.
Exactly. Yep.
It's a small world we live in.
It is. It is.
All good. But usually, Jane and I first met after just having lots of cocktails. Then we finally stayed sober.
Exactly.
That's the right way to do it. Cocktails is becoming the new way of life for me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I love the thing you see on social media that says, in 10 years, we're going to realize the kids were raised by schooled by day drunks and everything else you have going on.
My kid got no education one year because their parents were drunk the whole time.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
So were the teachers on Zoom. They just pretended they weren't.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly.
It is crazy. So I'm glad you can all see my screen. How many people did you think were coming on? You never know if it's going to be a few or not so many.
We had 9 registered before we started, but we've got new people on that hadn't registered yet. So we're cool. I think we, what did I do? I have this humongous screen now.
Click gallery view.
I can't find it because she's scaring. She's
I
scaring
can stop
me.
sharing for a second. Hang on.
Yeah, stop sharing 1 second if you don't mind. View options. I see it now, Tom. Thank you. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, because I could reshare. Because there's so much, even like literally 10 minutes before, I just had to look up something for a client, and SHRM, which is the big human resource society, right? They just released this whole new publication about what employers are doing right now. And I'm sitting here reading it and I'm like, oh my God, things are just changing by the hour. It feels.
Well, and the governor's going to make his big announcement on the road to recovery at noon.
Oh, he is at noon?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What are we going to do? Work calls through 12:30.
I got the TV on here. I'm sure we'll hear all about it.
What channel? Channel ABC?
Probably every channel. It's like the big road to recovery, it's the big when we're going back, because April's ending, so I guess they got to say
and you know what he's probably going to say?
Yeah.
See you in July.
Yeah. May 20th at the earliest, and then we'll let you know again.
Dana Lancelotti from New Jersey Tourism cited July 1 as the possible date when they would consider return to normal, with the September dates being when they've postponed large events for September. So I would guess that we're not going to see much of the summer, but I'm really hoping for that. I'm really hoping for a strong fall.
I really need my beach to open.
I
really need my beach.
I don't think your beach is opening.
I know. Don't say it out loud though, Jessica. I can't handle it.
I mean, they're shut down already. That you can't park by the beach here. Belmar, Lake Como, Spring Lake. They're all shutting down. So
Manasquan just stopped all the spots by the inlet this weekend.
It's gonna be more and more and more. Yeah.
But I have to be honest, I really believe, because I'm that person, it's going to go sooner because people are just getting crazy.
But it's the fear. It's the fear. People have been home now, and the people who've been doing nothing but watching the news are so terrified that they're going to really have to answer to that fear factor. I think
I don't want to go anywhere but my beach.
No, I don't even need to sit with anybody, just myself.
Yeah.
So the big problem is lifeguards are supposed to be taking their classes now. They're training now, so this is the issue with opening the beaches, is that if you don't have those certification classes, the Atlantic Club is closed. There's no place to get the trainings. There's no place to get the licenses. I don't know, it's just a domino effect.
Yeah.
That's why they're talking about no college football next year at Notre Dame.
Wow.
What a lot of people don't realize, when we talk about the supply chain, we often think of manufacturing, food stores, all that. And we put aside that even if we have these small, tiny businesses, we are so involved in supply chain because we cannot get things. If we want to open our stores, we need masks to maybe give our employees and people. If we want to open beaches, we need our kids to get certifications.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
all of these sub things. And that's pretty much actually what I'm going to talk about today. We have no control over this.
So let me introduce you and you can hit it, Kathy.
Okay.
So this is Kathy Naughton, and Kathy's from Catherine Naughton Consulting.
Yep.
I didn't get it right.
That's okay. I'll explain where I'm
You'll
from.
explain it.
I'll go for
But
it.
thank you guys all for joining our EMACC Connections. And we're happy to have Catherine here. And on Thursday afternoon at 4, we have Elise Leibowitz. And Jill, who do we have next Monday? Oh, Karen Jaffrey, right? Yeah, on education next Monday. So, giving us more, since we're going to still be home with our kids, giving us some more information on teaching from home if necessary. Okay, so Kathy, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say about positive employment.
We have to try, you know, and I really do appreciate you having me, because so much of what I'm going to talk about, this gave me an opportunity to sort of put it down on paper. And even I did it all last week, and then I don't like to look at this stuff so I can be fresh when I talk about it. Then this weekend, I'm listening to the news, and here comes all the different anxiety. How are we going to open? When are we going to open? And which governor is saying this, and exactly what we spoke about? Which governor is saying that? And the only thing that we know for sure is that no one really knows. Everyone's going to do it different. We're going to try to make the best decisions we can. But the reality is the people who we put most of our trust in, they're still trying to figure it out. So where does that leave us? And that's kind of what I'm going to focus on a little bit today. You know, and I will share this PowerPoint with you, and hopefully it's helpful. But about me, I left my job after 28 years around 2 years ago. I was one of those people who had that aha moment in life that it's just too short. And that did come from a lot of family sickness and everything. Some we overcame, some we didn't. And I realized I can't continue working in that toxic New York environment anymore. So I left and I started consulting. And I work for myself locally, but also with an agency based out of North Carolina. And I deal with most of their New York clients, a lot of nonprofit, a lot of private clients, a lot around work environment, employee engagement, all of that kind of stuff. So I've been busy, but I'm starting to slow down now because everyone's kind of adapting to their new normal. So to go through today, what I thought I would share with you, and hopefully this is good with you guys, I was going to go through some client case studies to tell you what all different clients are doing, touch on the new legislation, which I know we've gone over, how we prepare ourselves so that we could prepare our businesses, and what our businesses, some different businesses are doing, and some of the factors they're taking into consideration to kind of get themselves reopened. So if that's good with you guys, I think I'm going to jump right into, I'm going to give you a smattering of some of the clients that I work with, because they're all they really do very different. The first, who is someone I just spoke with right before this call, she has 700 employees, and she works in the city. She staffs hotels with the cleaning and housekeeping services. She completely shut down her business. You know, can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on. Someone's on.
Oh, good.
Is somebody asking you a question?
I get a free download.
Nope, I think someone's muted, so hold on.
No worries.
Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
So this particular client, she decided she was going to shut down totally and let everyone go on unemployment because she knew she couldn't manage the employees' safety. Some of the hotels asked her to come back and where the healthcare workers are being housed. She just today decided that she's going to do that. So now she's trying to figure out how to pull all the paid leave, how to know her employees are safe to come back and all that. Remember, she's right in the epicenter in the city. Then I have another client that's an NGO, like a nonprofit. They have offices in New York, Washington, DC, Massachusetts, but they're based in Bangladesh. When this all came down, they had people in some of these high danger areas, South Sudan, Kenya, and right at the last minute, they were able to get their staff home. So what they decided to do is they're now implementing a danger pay policy, which is similar to hazard pay that I think we're hearing many of us about, giving our frontline workers that extra pay because they're putting their lives in danger as well. Then I have a nonprofit news organization in the city as well. When this was all going on, they were at a journalistic conference where people wound up being exposed. and they had a staff member exposed. So they were trying to figure, well, now what do they have to do about that? Then I have a marketing company whose everything is about public events. They had to cancel all their contracts. This CEO decided he's just going to put money in the business, furlough who needed to be furloughed, take some pay cuts, not take his own salary, but try to focus on a new business model, I should say. So that's what he's been doing. And he's struggling. It's not been easy. As a matter of fact, this weekend, he sent me an email, a text rather, saying, can I tell my employees they have to work 70 hours a week? No, you really can't.
You really can't.
You can, but I really don't think it's going to work out well for you. So even him, as hard as he's trying to be good, he's struggling. Then there's a small company in New Jersey. He decided just to shut everything down, and thank God he's a W-2 employee. He was able to put himself on unemployment. And this last one, this is actually a friend of mine, and I do pro bono work for them. A small business. He's a manufacturer, and he's a tile manufacturer. They have less than 15 people. And this all happened in a matter of 1 week. Employee 1, partner tested positive. He had to figure out what he had to do with that person. Person number 2, afraid to come to work because his wife was high risk. Employee number 3 just stopped working. He just completely stopped calling in, stopped answering emails. They actually did a welfare check on him. Guy was fine, sitting on his front porch when the cops came. They had to just fire him due to job abandonment. So he probably just thinks he's going to get unemployment. So these are all the different things that some of these employers are dealing with right now. Now you couple that, and tell me if I'm going too quick, because I do have a lot. You couple that with all of the laws that came out, which thanks to like EMACC, we had a good group of people telling us about some of these laws and how they apply. But even then, every day they're changing the regulations. You look at some of these big businesses that took out the SBA loans, which really, then they wound up giving them back. It's like every day there seems to be something else. But the one thing that's so important in all these laws for all of us to remember is that we still have to deal with all of the other laws. Like, even though they're saying we can test our employees, we can get this aid, we could do this, we still have to keep privacy concerns and all of this other stuff. So there's just so much for us to deal with. This is a summary of the laws. When I originally started doing this presentation, I have a whole nother presentation that I've done, which breaks down these laws and gives a lot of the information, which I'm happy to share that with you guys. But I think that, unless you guys disagree, we went through a lot of these already. So I was going to just kind of summarize this and push that information out to you. But what I really, really wanted to focus on is, what do we do with all this? We don't know, we can't be an expert in everything. So the best that we could do is know where to go to get the information. Be aware that these laws exist so that if something happens, like if someone says, hey, my partner has the virus or my partner's high risk, where do we go through? What do we know that we have to do? So that brings me to my first tip: to create a network of reliable resources that you could turn to when a situation arises. The laws are just a piece of the puzzle. We don't know, we can't be an expert in everything, but we have to use our time and energy to focus on what we know how to do and how to rebuild our businesses. We're all in this together, but all of our experiences are different. Myself, I keep track of 3 or 4 law firms, which I'm going to share with you also. And that's where I go to get my updated information. And they're great, great, great at pushing out information to us. So that being said, I thought it might be a good time to sort of reflect back and see, even though I'm a super forward-focused person, I really try to be, sometimes when we have crisis, I find that it's really important to look backwards and see, when have we had challenges before? How did we overcome them? What did we do to help us go forward? What worked and why? And as I was thinking about that, I came up and I said, all right, so what do we compare this to? And I came up with all of these things that have happened locally and have happened across the globe, really. When you talk about SARS, Hurricane Katrina might have been in New Orleans, the economic collapse, all of that. Even though it's different, I remember 9/11. I remember the fear and the stress. I remember when, our retirement funds seemed to disappear in 2008. That was so scary. Hurricane Sandy, or Superstorm Sandy for that matter. How many of us lost homes, personal belongings, businesses at that time too? This is all really scary stuff. At the time, we couldn't figure out how we were going to get out of some of this stuff, but we did. And this one too, we will. In the HR world, in the coaching world, you go through these different stages. And then I remember this 3 stages of crisis response. And I kind of looked at this because we can put this into our business as well. Number 1, we have to take care of ourselves and recognize that what we're going through is normal for us. And we go through these 3 stages. The first is the survival. We're overwhelmed, we're uncertain, we're always checking the news, we're kind of flipping out, like, how am I gonna homeschool my kids? How are we gonna do all this? Then we move into that acceptance stage where we don't like what's happening, but we know we have to deal with it. It's just that simple. And then we start going into that growth stage where we start taking control over what we're doing. We know the situation's severe. We know we're kind of at the mercy of the government per se. When can we open? But we also know we have to move forward. And those are the 3 stages that our businesses are going through as well. And I'm really not a touchy-feely person and you have to survive and accept and grow. But when you look at it and when you break it into these little chunks, that's how we get to move forward, and then we help the people we work with move forward as well. But what's so important, number 1, is to manage our own stress and anxiety, and we want things to be different than they are right now. That's a given. That's what we all want. But before we can get our businesses on track, we have to start with ourselves. We have to recognize what our stresses are. We have to let ourselves say, hey, it's okay. We'll decide how long we're going to stay into this negative place. And after all, we have to navigate our businesses through this crisis, out of this difficulty. We need our employees to be engaged. We need them to be at the top of their game. We need to know that we don't know. We need to let them know we don't know everything, but we're going to be there to support them. Like the guy who says he wants his employees to work 70 hours a week. I mean, it was like everything I spoke about with him. It's like, no, you can't do that. You have to give your employees that safe space to know that everything is going to be okay because you're there with them. Actually, there was SHRM put a thing out that 94% of employees had work-related stress prior to COVID-19. Now you add all of this in. How do you expect your family, your kids, your employees, how do you expect them to be able to focus on growth and helping you move forward if we are not dealing with our own stress and anxiety? Best way to do that, and this is something I could talk about all day, is to tap into our own emotional intelligence, okay? Tap into our feelings, understand what we're thinking, help us move forward past that. I know, again, this is touchy-feely stuff right now, and I promise you I'm going to get into the work-related stuff, but once we get control of our own emotions and our own stress and our own anxiety, we then learn that we can control only what's controllable. And this is what gets us on that path of resiliency to help us help our businesses and help our own personal growth and success. So my purpose today is to give you guys this space to kind of recognize, yes, these are all the things I'm dealing with. There are days I want to put my head under the cover, but I can't. I have to push forward because I have to succeed for my family, for my friends, for my business. It's all about pushing forward, not staying in the past. So let me just get forward. So I know I'm from Brooklyn and I talk fast and I talk with my hands, so I hope I'm not going too fast. But resiliency, this is the key to where we're going. Thank you for the thumbs up. Resiliency in the workplace, the ability to respond to challenges with flexibility, recover from setbacks, more importantly, find opportunities to thrive when confronted with workplace challenges. That's our personal life. That's the workplace. That's how we got through the recession. That's how we got through Superstorm Sandy, which I always stumble on. Resiliency. It's so important because it helps us to know what's going on now, adapt to it, accept it, perform effectively, consciously connect to care and care about other people in these times of stress, decrease stress and anxiety. You know, there's so much that's not in our control, and we start freaking out. At least I used to, I will say, when I thought I had to control everything and I had to know everything. And when I finally pushed all of that and decided I don't need to know all the answers, because if the people we're paying in these high-powered jobs don't know, how the hell am I supposed to know them? So I go back to, I try to let go what I know I cannot control. And that's kind of what I want to push off to you guys as well. To identify the stresses, tap into emotional intelligence, and work on becoming resilient. Let go of worries. And that the best way to do that is to build that network of resources that I talk about. And I talk about that so much. So when I was even thinking about COVID-19, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get these people back into the workplace? How am I helping my clients get people back into the workplace when every one of them are hitting me with a different set of circumstances, like who's coming, whose husband is sick, who's just afraid to. It's all overwhelming. Then I realized, all right, go to my resources. The CDC has great resources on how to protect your workplace. They update the symptoms, which quite frankly, I don't know if any of you heard, I think the symptoms of COVID-19 were just updated again this morning. Okay, I mean, how are you supposed to know this stuff? Jersey has a great website. The US government, I will say, they do have a pretty decent website. But for businesses, it's this fifth one that I really, I encourage you guys to look at. This is a law firm that it's just one of those that I find so reputable, and I see them talk at a lot of conferences. They give really great free information and free webinars for employers. It's a great website to go to, and I have a few of them like that. So that is the biggest thing, is to kind of don't try to figure out everything, because it's simply changing too quickly. But know just enough to know you have to go get answers to your questions and where to get them. So that brings us into, let me just catch up with my notes. To remember, you guys, remain present in the moment. If we stay in the past, and these are just basic coaching tips, if you stay in the past, you rethink everything, you worry. If you are giving that feeling that you're worried, your employees and your clients, if you have retail businesses, your customers may be afraid to come into. That whole sense of anxiety and worry. Anxiety is when you're so concerned about what are you going to do tomorrow. Of course, we have to worry about tomorrow, but we can't let ourselves get so riddled in anxiety that the people around us lose confidence in us as leaders. Even if we have to fake it for a while, we have to portray that confidence, because we can't control what the future has, but we can control how we're going to react to it. And even when we get into that negative place, we can control how long we stay into that negative place. It's more a matter of, I have a bad morning, go for a walk, have a bad evening, have a cocktail if that makes you happy, but don't stay in there too long. Acknowledge that the business environment is going to be different. There's going to be a different set of rules, and we just confront it head on, because there's no other way to get around it. So that's all my touchy-feely stuff, okay? And I hope it resonates. It's like we need that feel-good stuff sometimes, and it's really hard. It's okay to know we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So now I'll jump into what I know many of us are really here for. What is recovery going to look like, okay? One thing we know for sure, it's going to be different for everybody. Okay, most organizations are going to have to consider measures to ensure the health and safety of their employees, clients, and customers. There was a quote by, Cuomo said, it's not a light switch that's going to go on and everything's going to get back to normal. It's going to be a process. We're going to have to know which laws apply. We're definitely going to have to consider maybe phased in return if you have more than a few employees, how we're going to manage physical distancing. Acme and all the grocery stores put up those plexiglass shields. I highly doubt they're coming down. I guarantee you they're going to be up, right? They're there. This is a whole new norm. My son went to the liquor store a week or two ago, and he actually went in with a black bandana and sunglasses. And he's like, a month ago, they would have thought I was there to rob them. These are all the new normal. And it's like, oh my God, how are we going to, but this is what it's going to be. So how do you do it? Create the model that works for you. And I've heard of a lot of different models out there. I've heard a lot of the long-term strategies. One of the things I know I'm guilty of is I start overthinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I try to get all of the answers in my head. And again, we don't know them. So then I go really simple. And I remember what someone said to me once, these days that I was in my own little crisis management model. How do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. There's only so much you could do. So consider like a really easy strategy, like this 3-stage model: improvise, adapt, and overcome. Improvise to what's available, adapt to new conditions, overcome, and succeed. And the good news, most of us are past stage 1 already, because that's what we've been doing. Whether we know it or not, we have all put together these business continuity plans, how to maintain the vital business functions, determine which laws apply to you, how to communicate with your staff, figure out what stay at home means. Examine your policies, shift to remote work. Right before we got on the call, I was with Jennifer and I was figuring out how to put my lights so you can see at least half of my face. And I do this all the time. Adapt to the new technology. And then the biggest one I think for us is going to be, if you have a retail store or even an office, how to disinfect the workplace. How do you let people know that it's safe? I'm going to jump into my slides. Some of the things I find fascinating is, I'll give you another personal example. I have a nephew, 20 years old. He's still figuring out his business. He took off. He opted not to go to college. He has been doing personal training. He has all these high school students on Zoom every single day, and he is killing it with his remote workouts. And these kids are connecting with someone their age. It's been fabulous for him. And so many, the restaurants that are doing the takeout only. My hairdresser who dropped off the hair color to me last night, people are figuring it out. They're in this improvised stage, and that is kind of what's giving them that ability to get into that next stage of adapt. I saw this on one of the presentations I did, same storm but different boats, and it reminded me, we really are all dealing with the same crisis, but each of us, and I'm sure all 9 of us on this call, however many there are, we're all dealing with it different. We all are in our own boats. And that is what we have to remember, that even when we talk to somebody else, it's not going to be the same story. Adapt. This is now what I believe the government is pushing us in, this 3-phase plan. When we get back into the workforce, we are going to have to definitely provide a safe space for all of our staff. We are going to have to give them medical equipment. We are going to have to figure out, how are we testing people who come into our environments that they're safe and they're not asymptomatic. Also, we're going to have to prepare that we may have a relapse, that the states might turn around and bring us back into some of these restrictions that they've implemented. So this is where I think we're all right now. We have to know the questions to ask ourselves to figure out, how are we adapting to this? I think it was the chief counsel was actually to the governor of Jersey, and I wrote this down: the top priority for businesses across all sectors is to adapt with safety protocols. He claims that workers and customers are unlikely to have the confidence to come back unless they see the actions and the protections that we've taken. And that's, I think, what we started talking about. When are we going to feel comfortable to go out? When are we going back to the bar to see our friend who plays a band in a crowded bar and we really have a lot of fun doing that? If we're not comfortable that these places haven't taken the precautions to keep us safe, we're not going to go in there. And we have to do that for the people we associate with as well. So we're going to have to consider implementing rotating schedules, temperature tests, virus screens, use of face masks. When you go to these 3, the EEOC, they've put out guidelines now saying, yes, it's okay to take temperature checks. And all of a sudden, things that you were never allowed to ask a client before. Are you sick? How's your family? You got HIPAA laws, you got everything. All of a sudden you're allowed. We don't know how to do this. So this is stuff we have to learn. And this is the guidance they're still coming out with right now. Oh, excuse me. Hang on a second. Develop a process for identifying and communicating with employees. Communication, which I'm going to get into a bit more, that is key throughout this whole thing. Communication and social distancing. We know that those are the keys to how we are going to get back to the workplace. That is what everyone is talking about. Using physical barriers, repurposing lunch areas. My husband's building, 1 person at a time is allowed to go up in an elevator. If you put that into the city with one of my clients, that is now adding 20 minutes onto each person's lunch hour. Now the question is, do I have to pay my non-exempt employees that 20 minutes? All of these questions are just like, making employers crazy. And the best answer, you have to do what works for you. And there is nothing around that. You must keep track of all the laws, because you know what? You may have to, for a short time, pay that employee because they entered the workplace ready to go to work, but they couldn't get up to the office. There's a fine line there. You know, some people would argue with that. I would say you have to err on the side of caution in some cases. So these are all the things that you have to figure out what works for you, but you have to think about what are the questions going to be. Consider implementing sending employees home, reminding and allowing sick workers to stay at home. You know, I say this part because talk the guy who wants people to work 70 hours a week, their intentions are so good. But then if their employees start calling in and saying, you know, I really don't feel well, I really don't know, our biases start creeping in. And all of a sudden, in a month from now, they're a low performer because they didn't come in when I needed them. These are all, I promise you, there is going to be litigation for years to come about people who feel that they were discriminated against in this term because my employer told me to stay home, then they didn't give me my raise. Then I got a really bad shift. These are all things that employers have to be cognizant of and make sure. And I told one client of mine, we were talking about which staff to bring back. And I'm looking at his list and I'm like, okay, you are bringing back everyone you like. All of those people who you've told me in the past might have had a performance issue, you have them on the back burner. You can't do that. You know, you can't have your biases. This is the worst time to bring biases into the workplace. You know, you have to consider all the options. Consider implementing, you know, removing shared items, staplers, hole punches, if we even have those anymore. How are we cleaning workstations? Most of us probably have stopped fresh food deliveries. I have so many clients who also love to give their clients their staff fresh food, love to have open containers. Obviously, we can't do any of that anymore. Consider limiting visitors in the workplace. Most important, follow the guidelines, and they're being updated constantly. Okay, so I'm still rambling. Do I have any questions? I only got a few more, and then we could open it up for chat. You guys good? Okay. Phase 3, overcome. This is going to be so critical for all of us because it goes back to how do we keep ourselves positive, because we don't have a choice but to succeed. So I'm going to bring it back to how I began today. We have to be resilient. We have to consider our strategies, but it's not about next month. Now is the time, as we're getting through this adapt stage and we're sort of figuring it out, to have in the back of our head, what is our 6, 12, 18-month strategy? Because yes, we will be here. I don't expect anyone on this call or any of my clients not to survive this, but they must think about what is next year going to hold. What has worked? What hasn't worked? Start keeping track. Write things down. You have to journal this stuff. You have to create your policies because you are going to forget what were your stresses at this time. And we need to remain resilient, agile, and stay on top of the latest laws because even in 2 months, we are going to be working with a different set of rules. There's no question in my mind about that. And here are some of the best practices we're going to have to consider. Number 1, set a time each week, if you don't have someone to do it for you, to check your network and your resources. See what the updates are. One of the things I caution people is, as much as maybe doing it every day and listening to the news every day is important, when they're reporting on the news, when it's just like that email blast on the website, that stuff's not concrete yet. I like to wait 3 or 4 days, unless I have to make a decision, and figure out what they said next. Because some of these reports are just, they're really not reliable. So keep reliable resources and kind of take a breather when something new comes out, because a new law is going to have amendments to it. That I promise you, it's already happened. Evaluate a need to retain an outside safety consultant if you have a retail business. Be prepared for another shutdown. Things like employee garnishments. You know, if you have W-2 employees and some of them may have a student loan, remember, some of those student loans, they may have been suspended right now. You may not be allowed to take that out if they don't want you to, because they have time to repay it. These are all the things that we need to start considering around our best practices. But most important, talk and communicate to your staff. That is going to be key to getting through this. I got to put my HR hat on for a second. Update handbooks. So many small businesses, and the couple that I cited here, okay, what is your policy? What is your handbook? We're a small business. We don't have a handbook. Yeah, and most small businesses don't. But now's maybe the time to say, you know what, we need one because my employees need a place to look at. I need to remember what I'm required to do. We do need some policies to follow. Communicate with the staff. If some of these policies, because maybe you didn't have a handbook, if they have a sunset provision, you know, and a lot of the unemployment laws and a lot of the laws we have right now, it's a sunrise, sunset. A lot of this is ending if they don't extend it by December 31st, and in some cases, maybe sooner. Unemployment only has so many extra weeks. Let your staff know what they can count on as well. Communicating that is equally as important. These are the 3 ones that I've been hearing most about. Figure out what is temperature check going to mean for you. You know, are you going to have a third party do it? Probably not for most small businesses, but what are you going to use? Cross-train your workforce because we are definitely going to have more absenteeism. Remote work is going to maybe be a thing that's going to stay here. Social distancing. How are we going to do that? You know, I've been guilty when I was in the grocery store and I saw an older woman trying to get something. I naturally want to go and help her get it, but I can't guarantee that that person's not going to think that I'm invading their personal space because I'm trying to help them. These are all the things that we need to think about. And keeping in mind all the privacy issues around them because these are not going away. Okay, we still have HIPAA laws. We still have medical privacy laws. Employee files need to be private. Harassment issues, be careful because I know, and again, I don't expect anyone on this call, but I could tell you my clients who I'm going to be dealing with unemployment, harassment, EEOC issues in the 6 months to a year from now. That being said, you know we're going to have all these obstacles that we're going to face. Employees are going to need the paid sick leave. People are going to be scared to venture out. We already talked about that. There's most likely next winter, there's going to be a reoccurrence. What are we going to do? Higher absenteeism for employees. These are all things every one of us are going to face in one way, shape, form. Kids' schools, they may not open. We may all be forced to go back to work, but those who have kids at home, what are you going to do with the kids? I mean, these are hard, hard things. But here goes my positive. It's always an opportunity. Every obstacle has an opportunity. It's our attitude towards it. Every opportunity has a difficulty. Every difficulty has an opportunity. I really, really try to live by these words. And when I am in that time of crisis, even in my own life, sometimes I'll just write down, what are my issues? What is it really holding me back? What am I facing right now? And I try to take what I'm facing and figure out where's my opportunity here, because there really is, and you may not know it until you see it in black and white. If employees need more paid sick time, great. That gives you an opportunity to communicate with him. It gives you an opportunity to work on empathy within yourself to see, hey, that kind of a question, I would say, how would I want to be treated if this was me? Okay, I would take myself out from being the boss, but the sick employee. Customers may be scared to venture out. You know what? Yeah, that's a real concern. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to put on your website or you're going to put on your door, this is the steps I've taken to make my workplace better because I care about you and I respect the fact you're my client. Exempt employees may need more time away from the office. We know work at home can work. A tough one. What about the increased costs we're all going to have for cleaning and personal equipment that we're going to have to give? Okay. But then again, if you're the organization that your clients and your employees know have taken care of them, they're going to take care of you. We've seen that because I guess most of us, I think we're around for that was it April 18th, I think it was, where all the restaurants wanted you to order takeout from them. Did you guys see that? You could not get food anymore. Everyone went to these restaurants. It was hours and hours wait because they're communicating. They care. We care about our workplaces. We care about our vendors. And it's okay to say that to them. So these are all higher absenteeism, again, remote work, empathy, employee engagement. They're all opportunities to touch the people who mean the most to us. Communication is key. Again, I could do a whole other session and I have this whole thing in my toolkit. Culture of caring. This is another key element, to lead with empathy. Let people know we care. take their concerns serious. Have open conversations. Tell your staff, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to figure it out with you, and I'm going to help you navigate through this. That's my commitment to you guys. And all of that, that helps us overcome what we're all going through. So some of the takeaways, you know, I'm going to give you the information on the federal and state laws, but tip one, create that network of resources. Don't try to do it all on your own. Identify your stresses, remain present, create the model that works for you. Turn those obstacles into opportunities however you can, because I promise you, you can. It's all your perspective. What are you going to look at? You can look at the negativity, the failure, the regret, the scariness, everything we're going through, or you could say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's July 1st, but okay, that means I'll be at the beach July 4th. Whatever it takes. Reframe your mindset and you will get your business through it. And I did it in a half hour. All right. That's pretty much what I had for you guys. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope can resonate. I mean, again, I go between the touchy-feely stuff, but I'm telling you guys, I lived in the most toxic work environment for so many years, and I learned how to navigate through that. And I realized that so much of what I said is the key in any crisis, especially this one. So I hope that helps you guys.
Thanks. I know we might have had a couple of questions. So if you have a question, just hit your space bar to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Kathy questions.
Please.
I have one.
Oh, please.
You said at one point, and I got to think, how do you know, and I haven't seen anything on this, if someone is asymptomatic but has it?
So that's part of what's a real challenge. And remember, that is one of the reasons that they're asking people to wear masks. It's funny because that's exactly what I was researching for my client before. You don't, and no matter what, and you listen to everything they say. I truly believe that if you have trust in your client, in your clients and in your staff, they'll be honest with you. So you have two parts to that. They may not know they're asymptomatic, okay? But this goes into when you have the return to work, what are those questions you're going to ask? You know, you may want to consider doing a health questionnaire to saying, hey, anyone in your social circle, have you been in contact with someone who has been diagnosed with the virus? How long was the last time you weren't in there? Then you start making them think about, is there a chance I'm even asymptomatic? Okay, that's the first thing. And that's part of what they are asking people. You can do temperature checks, but you can also invade their privacy a little bit and ask what they've been exposed to. Then maybe they're saying, you know what, there is a chance I'm asymptomatic. Then the conversation goes to, if they're a client, okay, can you please wear a mask when you come into our office? We're asking anyone to wear a mask. If they're an employee, say, you know what, you're going to need to work remotely. It's that whole bucket of we don't know, but what are the right questions to ask? Maybe your environment will have a health questionnaire. You know, some of the places that opened this week, the hairdressers, I forget where it was, I forget who opened, they, another state, they stopped people at the door, they did the temperature check, and they had a questionnaire. And depending that answer on the questionnaire, will they let them into their door? Okay, that's one part of it. The second part of it is, what do you do about those employees who may not be honest with you? They want to come in, so they may not be telling you the truth on these questionnaires. That's a hell of a lot harder to navigate because, you know, you want everyone to come in, you want people to come back to work. That's where it goes to, do you trust them? What is your environment? Maybe everyone will wear a mask. So I know that may not answer your question, but for the most part, if you have a retail establishment, you may want to consider a questionnaire. Second to that, that's why the social distancing and the continuation of that is going to be critical, because we're going to try to keep everyone that's 6 feet away. So even an asymptomatic person perhaps isn't spreading it to someone they're near. Does that help?
Yeah. Jessica, you had a question. Hit your space bar.
Yeah, so my question involves the temperature. I just can't see how that is not a complete invasion of civil liberties. I mean, honestly,
Yep.
Yep. Basal temperature? Really? It doesn't get more personal.
No, it doesn't. Well, so two thoughts on that. first, I think it was the EEOC, they came out with rules that temporarily you are allowed to invade that privacy on your employees. It's crazy.
I just, the idea that we are just
Yep.
going to so quickly submit to having our temperatures taken as
Right.
like that, I'm very curious to see where public opinion is going to fall on some of these issues. Because, and Kathy, thank you. This was very, very well done. I wish there was 100 people here. Because you very plainly, without using fear, stated what a lot of people, I think, are trying not to embrace, which is that we are not returning to business as usual. Everyone keeps saying, I can't wait for things to get back to normal. And I don't even want to say new normal. I just mean what you so well said is just, we have to open our eyes to what are going to be some very hard questions and very hard decisions that we have to make. And the longer we keep pretending we don't have to do that, the harder it's going to be to have the time we need to properly prepare to do that. And I made a lot of notes while you were talking. This was really, really well done.
Thank you.
Great job, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great programming.
Thanks.
You know, I wanted to jump on one thing that you said, though, and I don't even know if you saw it this morning, Apple and the whole, what they're doing now, where this scares me equally as the temperature, where they are tracking you on your Bluetooth to the phone. If you are in the area, I'm like, oh my God, how are you? I'm telling you, there's litigation coming.
I heard. And then you're going to be mandated to be tested if they can prove that you were there.
Right.
I mean, or they're going to send a drone to drag me to the PNC Arts Center to have the thing shoved up my nose. I mean, honestly, you can't make this up. It's like a movie we saw.
Right. And so that's why you just have to learn how to work within it. What are you going to allow? You know, and that's what it comes down to.
So my question was going to be about this vaccine. I'm also very concerned that there's going to be mandates to take these vaccines, that they're not properly tested and vetted yet. I don't can say I don't necessarily trust Bill Gates to make the vaccine that I'm supposed to be taking now. So do you foresee that as going to be a requirement for employment down the road? I
got to be honest. I mean, I'm definitely not an expert on this. I don't. My own personal feeling, and again, I don't know, not legal advice, it's only my feeling.
Right, no, of course.
And a couple of reasons. One of the things, do you guys remember when the swine flu came out? Do you remember people standing online at their local high school around the block to get that vaccine?
Yes.
I remember that so clearly. And then I said, whatever happened with that? Right? It's like, oh my God. I do think this is going to be around, but I don't believe, I hate to say this as well, I do think it all depends on politics, you know, wherever you are on that spectrum, doesn't matter, but it really depends who's going to be the decision makers. I think there's going to be places like New York that are going to really have those temperature checks when you go in. The vaccine, I don't know, because right now they have a lot of people who that trend has been for a long time not to vaccinate. And those are still stuck in the court right now. Can you force people to get vaccinated to go to school?
Well, I'm thinking like smallpox, right?
Yeah.
Smallpox, that was mandatory. You had to have a smallpox.
Yeah.
And they did it right when you were born, right?
Yeah.
So that's.
I think so, right? Because we used to have that little scar on us.
They had. I don't have it. I remember people older than me, and I remember being with somebody getting it. They just shot it in the arm. It wasn't.
I think you got it at like 4, and then you got a booster later, but I'm not positive.
Yes. So I don't know about the vaccine, guys. I gotta tell you, I don't know. I think that it's going to be very hard to mandate people get this vaccine. That's my personal opinion, but we'll see.
And what you saw me reacting to, Jennifer, when Kathy, you said, we were talking about the fear and how soon would we feel comfortable going back out. And I guess this is the tipping point that we're coming to. I feel like right now, government and media is trying to do everything they possibly can to scare scare everyone, to terrorize them, to make sure that they're taking this seriously. And So where's the diminished point of return for that? Like, oh, well, actually now you can go back out. And I think we're going to have a really hard time letting go of all of that fear. I understand why it's being used right now, but it's going to be really hard to pull it back. And I think that's an excellent point you made about how we have to show people that we have their best interests at heart, even if some of it, I mean, I'm going to compare it to TSA, okay? This is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone but myself. I personally don't feel any safer flying because I go through TSA at the airport. They take everybody's water bottles and drop them into the trash can. It does not make me feel like there are fewer terrorists online. But I don't think we're ever going to let go of that visible security blanket. Right. And so that's what I'm concerned about. These visible, like, is the plexiglass really doing anything? Or do we think we need to see it there because what makes us feel safe? And that's going to be what's really interesting here. A whole generation's mindset is going to be altered by this experience.
You know, and we don't know. You know, I bought my house, the house I'm in Manasquan, it was already lifted after Sandy. And they had all these, and this is just like an example of what you're saying. They had these vents underneath the house, the smart vents and all of this kind of stuff, because that's what you needed to do, because they had everyone feared that your house is going to flood and you need the water flow through. Where in a year, all the vents are causing all this mold and mildew underneath the house. And I'm like, what the hell? I love my vents, but now I got to go put a dehumidifier in. So everything is changing. But this is, you know, to that point, every action has a consequence. So we're going to put all of these things in. We're going to put the vaccination out there. But what are going to be the consequences? Are people really feeling safe? Are the vaccines safe? Where is that risk tolerance that we as individuals and we as employers are willing to take? And that's going to come down to your individual risk tolerance. I fear for so many small companies, they're not going to come back. Retail companies, because people got so used, people who never shopped Amazon or never did the fresh food delivery or any of that are going to continue that because they have that fear of going back to the store. How do businesses overcome that? That's what's going to be so hard. And I also fear that for some businesses as well. I really do.
Kathy, we have another question from Chris Ryan.
Hi. Hi, Kathy. You described to me an insurance agent. You described a new set of rules, which is really kind of like a minefield of dangers for an employee when it comes to EPLI and that type of thing. Similar to what we've seen with other industrial pushes, you know, Me Too and some of the other things that we've seen throughout the years. Is there a way, because again, the confusion between the different sets of information coming out, you know, there seems to be, it's all being lumped in together right now between laws and things that you have to do and notions of morality, you know, being a kind and understanding boss, you know, and there's a big difference there in terms of what you can be sued over. Mm-hmm. You know, do you go over that with your clients? Is that somewhere in that, you know, is there a list that we can find of these new things that are going to be required of bosses rather than preferred of bosses?
So there's not that magic list. We're defining it as we go along, but I can tell you, which has been a best practice for years and years, and it never came so more aware as in the Me Too movement, which you tapped on. The HR answer: document. Sure. At the end of the day, if you're making decisions around best practices and their knee-jerk reactions and you don't have clear reasons why you did that, you're probably going to lose that lawsuit. Okay. Yeah. And this is why I said, you know, how to eat the elephant one bite at a time and how to put things down on paper. And I'll give you the example, going back prior to all this, and maybe this will help you understand. I fired someone who was out on FMLA a few years ago, okay, during a restructuring, okay? And everyone's like, you can't do what you can't do. And I was scared to crap. No question I was scared. And without question, I got the lawsuit, you know, from the EOC, and I got charged with everything. But because I was able to show I had this many employees, these were the reasons I went for this employee. It had nothing to do with his age. It had nothing to do with that he was Hispanic. It had to do with this, this, and this. Then it all came into, and my insurance actually paid, that they did cover and they paid for the cost and all of that. It showed that I did everything with the best business decision in mind. It wasn't done. And as we're creating these rules, the best thing that advice you could give anyone is to make sure you keep your documentation clear, because for sure we're having litigation around a lot of this. And the other thing we're going to have a lot of litigation on, which people are going to, I think, be in, I can't tell you how many people I am sure are going to be fighting unemployment, are going to be in that unemployment office because they chose not to come to work and they said they just clicked that box, restructured, don't have hours due to COVID-19. So yeah, so as an insurance broker, I wonder, would you agree with that? Isn't it all about how do you prove your case?
Absolutely, documentation is key. And I just wanted to, I have two other comments. You know, you may or may not be aware of this, but most companies, if not all companies, that would sell you an EPLI policy. And for those who don't know, it's Employment Practices Liability Insurance. They would have access to different handbook examples that they will gladly give you, that you can put your name on the top and call it yours. You know, that's most companies that sell that line of insurance are very into helping their insureds avoid those types of issues. That's comment number one. And comment number two, back to something that Jessica said, you know, the privacy issues that we're going to have with the government is one thing, but I can tell you, I can foresee an issue with, you know, when you have a claim, when you have someone go out sick, or when you have COVID come into your place of business, it's going to be a very expensive proposition to get rid of it, shutting down and all that type of thing, and requiring people to prove to you that you have vaccination or an acceptable temperature. I can absolutely see happening, and that then you are entering into private property, and that's where the rub's going to come. Yeah.
And one of the things I wonder about is when we get past this and people are back and people are getting sick and it's either OSHA or then it's considered a workers' comp claim, how are they adjusting for your rates and your mod and all of this when all of a sudden especially these bigger organizations, my client who's in hospitality, if she has 20 people who claim they got sick through COVID-19, what's that going to do to her workers' comp? You know, and those are things that are just going to be weighing on employers.
Yep.
The insurance, the unemployment thing is going to be an issue too. So I'm tracking what's going on in Pennsylvania just because I grew up there. I have a lot of friends from there, and they are trying to amend the laws now. So especially with this PPP. So if I bring my employees back, I offer them back their jobs, but they don't want to come back because they don't feel it's safe, or because they have somebody elderly at home or whatever, that they don't want to take any risk, and they deny to come back for the job, then that puts me as the employer out, because I have to get the loan forgiven, I have to be able to bring back my employees. So if they're not coming back, but it also, then they can still claim unemployment. Now they couldn't. If I offer you your job back and you say, no, I don't want my job back now, next week when you go to certify, I can say, well, I offered you your job back now and you didn't want it. But to your point, Chris and Kathy, what you said, am I going to be the jerk employer that denies you your unemployment because you didn't feel comfortable coming back? You know, and Pennsylvania is amending the law so that the employers can't deny it. So then what's going to happen there? People, you have to make more than $29 an hour to make more money at a job than unemployment right now.
I know trades around here that, you know, had to furlough people. Now, 5-6 weeks into this whole ordeal, now some of these companies have some orders, you know, have some work to be done, and they can't get the guys back. They're making more money.
And I've heard that from 3 people. We try to bring our people back, and either they didn't want to come back, they didn't feel safe, or they just were making more money through unemployment or whatever. And none of them businesses that we, you know, I'm just anecdotally.
You see that every time we have a crisis that warrants additional unemployment. You see that every time. I just didn't expect to see it as much this time because of the severity of the economic impacts that we're seeing in real time, and the fact that there is, you know, hopefully an end in sight, so that these guys would jump at the opportunity to get back involved. But I was surprised.
It's crazy.
Well, And also workplace conditions have really changed. So maybe you didn't mind your bad job at, McDonald's or whatever, but now that you have to go there and you have to have a mask and you have to have it's just the jobs that many people are having as essential jobs, not only did they get a lot more stressful, but they got a lot more physically uncomfortable.
Sure.
And so that really plays into people's decisions to go back and stand behind the plexiglass.
And Jessica, and I didn't even touch on this because it was a whole nother level of conversation. The mental health aspects of bringing the employees back, and that, so, and Chris, I don't know if your organization does this, the employee assistance programs that are going to be so important to tell your employees about. The mental health has been crucial to me, and I can't help myself because yes, I feel sympathetic and empathetic and all that in the mental health. Then it goes right into efficiency and productivity, because I am telling you, it is going to go in the toilet for a period of time because people cannot get their heads because they're so frightened. And that's where, as leaders, we have to pretend we're not and hold our head high and kind of give that the level of confidence, because if we show a break in that, we can just affect everyone else being water cooler talking inside and not getting work done. And it's so important to get the work done.
And it's also really important to consider that when you're bringing people back. So I will share, we had one employee who was an older woman, definitely in a high risk, and she's the reception area and wasn't feeling comfortable. And when we said it is time if you want to come back, she, after a few hours, she just was not feeling like she felt safe after she had been, at home for all that time. And so if you have one employee that's coming in that doesn't feel like they're safe, then that drags down the morale of everyone who's trying to be there. Yeah. So it's not just a matter of mental health for the employee, which of course is important, but overall morale, which is really important if you all want to have jobs at the end of this. So.
And it's really important not to just say, "Oh my God, stop!"
Yeah, no, of course not, because even though she's fine and she is alone and it is socially distanced, and also it's just different. Like, yes, you can come back, but you can't sit in the lunchroom with any of your friends anymore. And yes, you can come back, but you can't sit at have coffee with the girls. Like, work is just you alone in a room all day for 8 hours. Do you still want to come back? That's tough.
I'm not drunk. I'm standing. Wait. I'm staying while the board on my desk. Hey, like we said earlier, this is how we started. The world is going to be run on day drunks now. It used to be the world is run by C+ students, all day drunks. That's what's going on. But it's great conversation, guy. I mean, we can go on for hours and hours.
Tom, I didn't see that comment. That was pretty funny. I was like, what?
Anyway, but I will share the resources with you if you guys want.
I would love that.
If you would share your PowerPoint, and we'll share this recording. Jill will send that out later today with everything as soon as we get it from Kathy, and then we get the recording taken care of. And everybody who was here today, Jill will send that out to you.
Right.
If you called in, or if you're not a member and we're not sure who you are, please email us. Email Jill at assistant@emacc.org. That way you can get the materials as well, because I know there's a couple of people who are logged on the phone and we don't necessarily have emails. So,
righty. Thank you, Kathy. This was
Thank
great.
you, Kathy. It was awesome.
Great information, great resources.
Yeah.
Thank you. Glad you appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right, we'll see you soon, guys.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.